Hey guys, this is RyGuyGaming, or as I'm known in the RuneScape Classic community, Ryan. And today we are going to be doing a Easter event in RSC Cabbage, which is our custom server over at Open RuneScape Classic. And so basically this is the server where we put new items, new quests, and a couple of quality of life features. And so like I said, we are going to be doing the Easter event that I made. So for the first half of the video, we will be doing the quests and going through like a walkthrough. And for the second half, if you want to stick around, I will actually be showing some of the steps and things that went into making the quest. And I will be doing this on my mod account, just because I already did it on my main account, and also because I can teleport around with this account, and so it'll be a lot quicker. When I did do it on my main account, I did it without teleports. It took me about a half hour, so it's not super long, but there is quite a bit of walking, so I'd like to shave that part out for the purposes of this video, so I'm on my mod account here. But anyways, to get started, you just want to go ahead and talk to Ester here. I kind of made her, I guess as we go through, I'll kind of talk about some stuff, and at the end I'll go like super in detail, so that way you can kind of get like a normal dev commentary and then like a super in-depth dev commentary. But anyways, I kind of wanted to make Ester Easter themed, so you can see she's wearing like common Easter colors with like the purple and it's more like a cream color, but I think gold is more of like the actual Easter color, but she's got like the green and the pinkish reddish color. But I also wanted to make her look a little disorganized, and that's why her clothes are all mismatched. Because she's kind of, if you examine her here, she says she looks quite frazzled, and she's kind of, maybe not an airhead, but she's not the brightest bulb. We'll find out as we continue on in the quest. But anyways, to get started, we'll just talk to her here. Oh no, where did they run off to? They can't have gotten far, but I can't figure this out. So one thing I should mention before we continue, for those of you that aren't familiar, RSC Cabbage is actually faster than original RuneScape Classic. I think if you do the math, it's about 30% faster. So I'm going to have quite the job keeping up with these dialogues, so please excuse me for that. Anyways, you have two options here. If you say nothing, it'll just break out, but you say, "What's the matter?" And she says, "My bunnies. I had 5 bunnies, but they've ran off. I don't know where they went. They left me riddles that I assume will lead to their locations, but I'm hopeless when it comes to this stuff." And then I say, "Wait. How did your bunnies leave you riddles? They're magic bunnies. They're a lot smarter than your average bunny. They pull tricks on me all the time. Why would they leave you riddles if they ran off?" "I don't know. I'll have to ask them when I find them." "Why can't you just buy new bunnies? They're magic bunnies. Their feet are extra lucky. I need them for a magic enchantment I'm working on. I'm trying to make the best Easter present ever." "I will help you find your bunnies." "Oh, you will? Thank you so much." And then now we have to ask her about the riddles so we can actually find the bunnies. And for these riddles, I didn't want to make them too tricky, but you definitely do need some game knowledge to figure them out. Looking at the world map will probably help if you aren't too familiar. You can find that on like Google or whatever, or on like the RSC wiki. But anyways, the first riddle, I say, "What's the first riddle?" She says, "Let's see. I'm a bunny that likes the ocean. My neighbor has a red berry pie addiction. What do you suppose that means?" "What is the second riddle?" "Let's see. I'm a bunny that likes the forest. Those that are behind castles are the best." Then she says that could be anywhere. "What is the third riddle?" "Let's see. I'm a bunny that likes it hot. Find me south of a mining plot. These are making my head hurt." "What's the fourth riddle?" "Let's see. I'm a bunny that likes things scary, witches, ghosts, and spiders hairy. Where in the world could that be?" So then we'll go to the next menu and we'll ask, what's the 5th riddle? Let's see. I'm a bunny that likes ice. Too bad none of my neighbors are very nice. I can't even begin to imagine. And then we'll just say, I'll go find your bunnies now. And so when you talk to her, she says, oh my, this is so stressful. How's it coming along? Have you found my bunnies? And you can say, you can go back to asking the riddles, or you can ask, who's that man upstairs? Because if we go upstairs real quick, you'll see there's this random dude with this random sword on the ground. So I actually put in a line of dialogue explaining that guy. So if we ask her about him, she says, oh, that's my husband. I know what you're thinking. Why don't I ask him to go get my bunnies? He used to be an adventurer, quite like yourself, but there was an accident at an archery range. He can't really do much with a shattered kneecap, so now he just stays inside all day, and his sword just sits on the ground collecting dust. I'm sure he wouldn't even mind if you just took it. Anyways, so let's go and find those bunnies. I can't remember the order of the riddles, but I think I kind of remember. So the first one was about being near the ocean and having and his neighbor having a red berry pie addiction. And so anyone who's done even a little bit of RuneScape questing will know that it's referring to the Imkondo dwarf on Musa Point, which is just right over here. I'm going too far east. I need to go more south. But it's actually pretty close. I wanted the first bunny to be pretty close so that way you could kind of see what you were in for. So here we are. If you see on the map here, Thurgo, or whatever his name is, house is just right here. Port Sarim is directly north of me, but here's the bunny. You can see he's kind of like a little cute kind of guy. But let's go ahead and talk to them. Hello there, human. I say, you can talk? He says, yes, of course I can. Didn't Ester tell you we were magic bunnies? Actually, it would be just like her to forget something like that. Hello there, human. Why did you run away? Since you're here, I assume that you talked to Ester. She doesn't really provide this stimulating conversation, so I came out here to contemplate the universe. Come back here. The thing about the faster game speed is the NPCs zoom by a lot quicker. Oh, there's Thurgo. Crap. Why did you leave riddles that lead to your location? We knew that Ester wouldn't be able to solve them, and her husband hasn't been out of the house in years. We figured that anyone who could solve the riddles would actually be worth talking to. So we have one more thing to ask him. You need to come with me back to Ester. No, I will not come back with you. I like it too much here. And there's 3 options here. I'm going to say please first. So please. And he says no thank you, and then walks off. And now we will say I want you to come back with me. And then these top 2 options, they actually result in the same exact thing. So you can say either one and it doesn't really matter. So you can say, this is kind of a meaner one and this is kind of a nicer one. So I'll say the nicer one. I say, she needs your lucky foot for her enchantment. All you need is my foot? Here, take it. The bunny grabs his foot and pulls it right off its body. The bunny hands you its foot. Are you okay? Sure, I'm magic. Didn't hurt at all. I would still ask that you please try not to lose it. If you say so, thanks. So one thing I did want to add in on the bunnies is after you get their foot, I don't think they have any... That's interesting. I think I just found a bug. You shouldn't be able to get the foot again after you already have it. That's kind of weird. Yeah, that's weird. Anyways, I wanted to have a line like where you could go up to the bunny and later you could ask like, how come even though you gave me one of your feet, I can still like pretty much see them all, because as you see, as I rotate around the sprite, I can see all of his feet. And obviously that's just because I didn't really want to draw a sprite with a foot missing. But in the front view, you can actually see all 4 of his legs. If that wasn't the case, I was going to have the bunny say something like, actually, I am missing a foot. It's just part of the magic that the foot I'm missing is just the one that you aren't observing at the time. So it would kind of be like some kind of quantum missing foot or something. So I thought that was kind of funny. But obviously, you can see all 4 of his feet in some of his animation frames. So it doesn't really make sense because there are some times where you can see all 4 of it. So I just left it out, and it's up to the player's imagination. Maybe he just like instantly grows his foot back. Yeah, and if you examine the foot, it says, "I do feel lucky, punk." That's kind of a reference to Dirty Harry, of course, if you're familiar with that. So now we're here at Draenor Manor, just north of Draenor, obviously. And we're here with the bunny that likes things scary. So let's go ahead and get his foot now. Hello there. And then this time you'll notice that when I talk to him, I don't actually have the option to tell him to come back to Ester with me, because that just leads into some more dialogue and stuff. And so I just wanted, once you get the first foot and you get like the shock of them being able to rip their own foot off, I just wanted you to be able to just ask them for it straight out and then them just ripping it off for you. Since you have to walk so far, I just wanted you to be able to just grab it and move on. So one thing is if I talk to this bunny, yeah, that is so weird. That should not be showing up like that. I have no idea why it does that. So if you have the foot, it shows the message. It should just have nothing here. So that's why it's so weird. But anyways, obviously that's a bug that will need to be fixed for this year or next year, depending on when I get around to it. Because I think we were talking about it, and we might bring this back next year for the people that don't get to do it this year. But anyways, all of these rabbit's foot are actually different items. So normally in RuneScape Classic, you can kind of cheese stuff. Like if you drop the foot and then talk to the rabbit again, he'll give you a new one because you're like, oh, I lost your foot. But that won't actually work. You need the 5 distinct feet, one from each of the rabbits. And right now, there is no way to tell the difference between the 5 of them. So that is something that will also need to be fixed. But now I'm going to go back to Rimington because there's actually just a little bit different of a dialogue that you get with Ester after you collect your first rabbit foot. So after you've collected at least one rabbit's foot, you can come back to Ester and she says, oh, this is so stressful. How's it coming along? Like she did before, but this time you say, I have found some of their feet. And then she says, that's great, but please hold on to them until you have them all. I'm afraid I'll lose them if I take them now. So that's just kind of an excuse to not have to keep track of how many the player has turned in. Because otherwise, yeah, I'd have to keep track of which one the players turned in, and it would just get messy. I had like 3 days to make the quest by the time I was finished with like homework and stuff, so I kind of took some shortcuts, and that was one of them, was making it so that you had to hand in all 5 of the rabbit feet at once. But anyways, we're going to go to the next location. So here we are in Lumbridge. This is the castle on my map right here. This is the riddle that has to do with the bunny that likes the forest, and he says those that are behind castles are the best. This one is one that could probably throw people off because there's a couple castles in the free-to-play land of RuneScape, and one of them is pretty far away. And so you could either look here or at the other castle. So hopefully people eventually find this one. Because I think there's really only, I guess there's Falador Castle, so I guess technically there's 2 other places you could get sidetracked to, but I meant the one behind Lumbridge. And There are other castles in the game, but they're all in members areas, and usually holiday events are kept to free-to-play so that the free-to-play players can do them. In Open RuneScape Classic, everyone's a member anyways, so it doesn't really matter. But just to keep up with like the authentic feeling and the tradition, the quests can be done completely by a free-to-play player. So let's get this rabbit's foot, and we'll be off to the next one. So here we are at the Al-Kharid Bank. We're going to go talk to the bunny whose riddle was, he likes it hot and he's south of a mining plot. So this is the only desert in the game, is Al-Kharid, and the place is south and kind of north of it. Like the whole right half of the map is basically a desert, but it's kind of the only desert. And as far as I'm aware, the only mining plot in free-to-play desert area is just right up here. If you go further north, there's a bunch of mines that you can mine stuff. Come here. Where's he going? Here we go. So we'll just grab his foot, and then we'll be off to the last one. Second to last. Or yeah, last one. Here I am at Edgeville. I'm just walking south right now. I've kind of been doing these bunnies in what I would consider the optimal order, but this one's probably debatable. You could probably get this one after you get the one at Drainer Manor. I haven't like measured for speed or anything. They're all... I think the Al-Kharid one is the most out of the way one, especially since if you don't go around, you need to have the 10 GP on you to go through the gate. But for the most part, like I said, the overall quest only took me like a half hour without teleport, so it's not too bad. And I'm sure someone could figure out the optimal path between the 5 bunnies, but that will not be me. But anyways, so the last riddle, if you remember, was the bunny likes ice and none of his neighbors are very nice. So if you look on the map around here, there's like the Black Knights Fortress to the northeast. And the Black Knights are kind of like your enemies. To the northwest, there's the Goblin Village. And then right here on the map, kind of like southeast, is the Dwarves. And while they aren't like hostile, they definitely aren't the nicest peoples in the game. Alrighty, so here we are back at Remington now that we have all 5 distinct feat. One thing that I should have mentioned is that in order to progress to the stage of the quest where you can actually give them all to Ester, you need to have all 4 of the previous feat in your inventory as you get the last one. If that doesn't happen, like if let's say it drops on the ground because your inventory's full as you get the last one, because if your inventory's full and you get something added to it, it'll drop on the ground. So if you have all 4 but your inventory's full so you don't have room for the 5th one, it actually won't progress you to the next stage even after you pick it up, so you won't be able to hand them into Ester. So just make sure you have, once you have all 4, make sure you have an extra slot for the 5th one so that it can progress your quest stage so that you can hand them all in like this. Hello, did you manage to find my bunnies? Yes, I have all their feet right here. Excellent. Hand them over, please. Now I can get started. Oh wait. Oh no. It seems while I was occupied with the bunnies, my magical duck has also gotten away. Can you please help me find it? You have a magic duck? Yes, he is the last piece of the puzzle. I need one of his magic eggs to finish my enchantment. I promise this is the last thing I need. And then you can either say, no, I'm done helping you, which will just close out the dialogue. Alright, I understand. But if you change your mind, I'll be here. Please, can you help me find my magic duck? And then you just get the same options and you say, of course I'll help you. He says, do you have any idea where he went? Did he leave a riddle too? No, but I do remember that he talked about a place he liked. I think he had a friend there. He talked about a jolly boar. And then, have you found my duck yet? I need one of his eggs. No, not yet. Okay, just remember that I think he is with his friend, and I think his friend is a jolly boar. And so this is another one of those, I guess it's technically a riddle, but not really. So Jolly Boar refers to one of the inns in the game. If you've done the Vampire Slayer quest, you'll be familiar with it, but only in RuneScape Classic, because in RuneScape 2 and 3, they move the NPC that you have to go to. So let's go ahead and head off to the Jolly Boar Inn. Real quick before we head off, I forgot to show the examine text for the bunnies, I think. I can't remember, but it just says a fluffy bunny. Alright, so here we are at the east gate of Varrock. And so what you want to do is just come out of the east gate and just go north. And as you can see on my map, there's the inn. I just went straight north. I know I cut ahead, but there's the inn. And here's the duck. So we can go ahead and examine him. And it says definitely not the ugly one. But when you talk to him, it says, "Hello, my friend. How can I be of assistance?" And then there's a couple things you can say to him. The top one, I just kind of threw in there because I wanted this to be like a mystical duck that like knows stuff. So you can say, "Please impart me your wisdom." And you say, "Leisure is the mother of philosophy." And I'll say, "Interesting, thank you." And so basically the duck right now, he just has like 10 random philosophical quotes that he can say from old philosophers. When I tried looking up the quotes, I typed in like profound quotes, and all I got was those garbage quotes that people post to like Instagram over like the picture of the sunrise on the beach or whatever. So I needed to type in specifically stuff like philosophical quotes where I could get something a little more serious. But anyway, sorry. Let's go ahead and talk to the duck. Hopefully we can add more wisdoms to him in the future. I think that would be funny. But anyways, let's go ahead and say the second option. I say, "I need one of your eggs." He says, "I am disinclined to acquiesce to your request. Prithee return when you have mastered your tongue." And then he stops talking to you. But if you say, when he asks if he can be of assistance, you say, "Prithee bestow upon me one of thine eggs." Then he'll say, "You are well spoken. I am inclined to acquiesce to your request." The duck gets a funny look on his face. "Are you okay?" The duck holds up a wing to silence you. With a pop, the duck is now sitting on a magic-looking egg. There you go. Try not to eat it on your way back. So I think it's funny that the duck likes you to be kind of proper in your speech, because he honestly isn't too proper in his own speech. I kind of got lazy because I was running out of time there at the end. The duck was the last NPC that I wrote the dialogue for. And after I had spent like a half hour actually looking for those silly quotes, like I said, I was running low on time, and I still had to do the rewards for this quest that we'll see once we get this egg back to Ester. And this egg is actually just the normal Easter egg, so you can actually eat it. If you eat it, you can get another one back from the duck, or you can use an Easter egg that you already have if you've picked one up from a previous Easter event, because normally in RuneScape Classic on Easter, it will drop Easter eggs and bunny ear sets. And so you can honestly use any egg, but you have to talk to the duck and get him to lay an egg first. If you don't talk to the duck first and get him to lay an egg, Ester won't even accept an egg. But as soon as the duck lays an egg, you can just give her any old Easter egg. So anyways, back to Ester. To be honest, I probably should have moved the duck to a better place because he's pretty far. Remington and the Jolly Boar Inn are kind of on the opposite ends of free-to-play if you don't include the wilderness, which I won't, because that was definitely something I didn't want to do, was bring the players into the wilderness. I didn't want people to grieve people that were just trying to get the Easter event done. And usually you don't have holiday events in the wilderness anyways. I can't think of an example where Jagex would have done that. And it's just common sense to not to. But anyways, I got the egg. Oh, wonderful. Give it here and I can finally get started. You give Ester the egg. Shoot, I totally missed like half of it. Shoot. Yeah, my bad. I kind of got mixed up there. I guess I'll just have to read it in past tense now. I'm sure you read it while it was going over her head, but I'm just going to read it anyways. You say, I got the egg. Oh, wonderful. Give it here and I can finally get started. You hand her the egg. And she says, and then it says like, Ester takes the eggs and the rabbit feet. And then she says, Aegius Bunnius Maximus. And then it says, with a pop, Ester is now holding 2 rings. And she says, it worked. I guess you could say that makes me pretty ecstatic. Anyways, I want you to have these. And then it says, she hands you the 2 rings. And then it says, the best Easter gifts ever. Try them on and see what happens. Thank you again for all your help. And then you say, you're welcome. And then it says, like, you completed the Ester's Bunnies mini quest. Get it? It's like Easter Bunny, but it's Ester's Bunnies. Anyway, so yeah, the reward you get are these 2 eggs. So this one is the ring of... Did I just say these 2 eggs? These 2 rings. If this one is the ring of egg, if you examine it, it says imbued with extreme power. And then this one is the ring of bunny. And if you examine it, it says imbued with the power of cuteness. And so what happens is if you wear these rings, you actually can like morph into whatever is on the ring. And so as this, you can run around as a little egg, or I guess hop around as an egg. And then you can also run around as one of the bunnies. And these are probably what took the longest to do, honestly, like writing the quest dialogue. I don't think it took as long as writing the code to get these morphs to work. And even then, I kind of had to take shortcuts, which thankfully one of the other developers was able to kind of patch up after the event got out. But anyways, I just wanted to come up here to, what are my stats? Yeah, those should be fine. I wanted to come up to here to some of these NPCs so I could show you that they even have like attack animations. Like as the egg, you kind of jump at the enemy. And then as the bunny, you also kind of like bullet into the enemy. So yeah, I definitely see a lot of people running around as eggs and bunnies now. Because you can pretty much do anything. The only thing that they do is they actually lower your equipment stats. Like you see my armor, my weapon aim, my weapon power, my magic, and my prayer bonus. They're all 1. Normally, if I was like, since I have the scythe, you see, I have weapon aim 11, and if I was wearing armor, my different stats would change. But the rings actually have a big negative effect that makes you basically like you were not wearing any equipment at all. And this is because in PvP, people would be able to hide their equipment, and we don't really want that to happen. It's better for everyone if you can see what your opponent is using to make sure that they aren't like cheating, or just to make sure that you're geared up with the right stuff. If everyone was running around with as an egg, then no one could really see what anyone else was using. So anyways, yeah, that's going to do it for the end of the quest. I guess the only things left to wrap up in-game are like some of the post-quest dialogues. I think the bunnies just say hello human and that's it. The duck just says hello human. And then you can ask him to share some of his wisdoms. And then I think Ester, she basically just said, let's see, she says, thank you again for helping me. You can ask her, what should I do if I lose my rings? She says, you can talk to my friend Thessalia. She'll be able to give you new ones. She's like a NPC in Varrock that runs the clothes store. She also helps you if you drop your scythe or your bunny ears. And so you can get a new one of the either ring at the same place also. So that's kind of helpful if you're like a Ultimate Iron Man and you don't have a bank. So that way you can just drop them, but you can get them back whenever you want. You can also ask her about her husband again, or you can just say you're welcome, and that will just end the dialogue. Alrighty, so now that we're done with the quest overview or walkthrough kind of thing, I can show you some of the stuff that went into making it. if you see me skipping around a lot, it's probably because I'm trying not to dox myself. Because, yeah, sometimes Windows can be pretty bad about just splatting your real name somewhere. And I don't want that to happen, so please excuse if there's any excessive cuts. I've tried to estimate the total amount of time I spent on this quest. I think it was probably about, I want to say around 12 hours, probably a little more, but I'll give 12 as a conservative estimate. Probably the thing that took the longest was getting the Morph Rings working. The thing that took the second longest amount of time was probably just getting all the sprites in the game. It's not very convenient right now the way we have to actually get items and stuff into the game. So basically, for the 2 rings, let me open them in paint.net here. So for the 2 rings, I basically just took the ring sprite that was already in the game. So here it is. And then I just took the egg sprite and I kind of just smashed it onto it. If you try to resize like a pixelated sprite in paint.net just normally, it kind of starts to look like crap. That's because you have to come up here and change the quality to nearest neighbor, and it looks a lot better. Obviously, if you go too little or something like that, it kind of loses the colors and stuff, but usually it can actually go pretty big with nearest neighbor on sprites without it looking too bad. And then same for the bunny ring. This one actually looks really creepy if you zoom in close on it, but I basically just took the bunny head, shrunk it down, and put it on the ring. But I won't make you look at that anymore. For the bunny foot, I literally just cut off one of the, or like spliced off the feet from the bunny model and sized it up a little bit. You can see how it's kind of blocky. That's a side effect of the nearest neighbor scaling on something so small. So here's the sprite sheet for the bunny. There's a lot more animations for the bunny that didn't actually make it into the game. So in RuneScape Classic, the way animations actually work is I have stuff here. Let me. It won't let me zoom these in to be big enough to show you, but basically you have 3 frames of animation for each direction. So you have 3 frames front facing, 3 front and diagonal, 3 to the side, 3 back and diagonal, 3 from the back, and then 3 attack animations. And that's pretty much all you get. So I had to basically pick and choose from this sprite sheet which ones I wanted to use, because you can see there's actually 8 frames for each direction in this one. And I had to flip them too, because RuneScape Classic likes them to be pointed to the right, but on this they're pointed to the left. But obviously that's not hard to do. So yeah. And then for the transparency, RuneScape Classic doesn't, it uses PNGs, or sorry, Open RuneScape Classic. I shouldn't be saying RuneScape Classic because a lot of this is custom stuff that we had to make. But for Open RuneScape Classic, at least, it uses PNGs, but for transparency, it uses black instead of like the actual transparent, like alpha or whatever it's called. So you can't use straight up 00000 black in your sprite, because it will just become transparent in the game. So you have to use like these dark grays and dark browns, which thankfully these bunnies already came like that. I didn't actually have to change anything. So here's the sprite sheet for the duck. Obviously, there's a lot of different ducks, and they even have animations for it swimming. The problem with the duck is, although it was kind of nice, they only had 3 frames, like standing still, foot back, foot forward, and so on. They don't have the directional, like diagonal ones, so I had to just use the the sideways frames, for example, and then the backwards frames. I tried to draw my own, but that didn't go very well. So yeah, this is what we got stuck with. It doesn't look horrible like if you saw during the quest. It honestly didn't look that bad, but it could have been better is all I'm saying. But oh well. Here's a bunny we were going to use. It's a little small. Like it's even smaller than the rat that's in RuneScape Classic, which is already tiny. And when I tried to size it up, even with like the nearest neighbor scaling, it just kind of made it look all fuzzy and didn't look too well. And of course, I would have had the same issue that I had with the duck, because this sprite sheet doesn't have the diagonal frames for these bunnies. I think these are mostly used by people who do RPG Maker, and I don't think the RPG Maker has diagonal sprites, so I think that's why a lot of these sprite sheets don't have them. Anyways, so once I got those all worked out, my next step was to come in here to the Sprite Tool, which basically just packs and unpacks the archive that we use. So I'm just going to open the workspace real quick. And then you can see that I come in here and I have the, oh wait, it would be up here. I have the bunny. And then I actually have the bunny morph. So when you morph into the bunny, if you just use the like default NPC that I showed you, it will actually scale up to the size of your player and be absolutely huge. So here I am back in game to showcase this. If I do become NPC big bunny, you can see this uses the sprite from the bunnies that were in the quest, and you can see that it scales it up to the size of your player, and so it actually doesn't work very well because the just because of the way that the animation scaling works in this game. So to get the ring to actually work and make it look normal, what I actually had to do, I actually had to make a sprite that's the size of the character and then just paste the bunny into it. So that way it will be scaled properly. So when you're morphed as the bunny, you're actually your normal size, but your sprite only takes up the bottom chunk. Same for the egg. And that's actually how I was able to do things like the attack animation. You see, I was able to kind of move the bunny along the X and Y axis in the sprite so that it could look like the bunny was actually jumping up into the air towards the enemy. And like I said, same thing for the egg here. You can see the attack animation. Anyways, back to the sprite editor. So basically the way I would have to do this is for animations that are the most annoying. You right click and you say new entry, and then I'll just name this new entry. I won't save this. And then you have to pick what type. For the morphs and the bunnies and stuff, I used NPC. You probably, I don't think you'd want to use anything else, to be honest. And the morphing was already set up to work with NPCs anyway, so it was just what was easiest. And then you hit accept. And this basically just creates a new folder. It uses the goblin animation as the default, but you can see that there's the frames and stuff. And so to import, you click on this folder. I don't want to turn this into like a tutorial for this. I just want to show you kind of how annoying it is. So let me switch to display. So you click on the folder button I showed you, and then you navigate to where you have your animations. So let's say I just want to do the egg morph again. I select the folder, and then here they are. Now, the problem is you can see that blue box is kind of wide and stuff. So I actually had to come in here and I had to go like this, and change these to the size of the player. I don't remember what they are, but I had to change these, and it doesn't change all of them, so you have to go through each of the 18 separate frames and change it one at a time. So that's kind of annoying when you have to do an animation. Adding an item is just much simpler because there's only one frame for it because it's just a sprite. Sorry, I realized I was still in the zoomed out mode. I hope you could see everything. But anyways, here's the items. So you can see they're just a single picture. And you just basically have to make sure it's the right size and everything. Usually it's the default size that you want to use. And so yeah, that's pretty much how I had to get the sprites into the cache. That doesn't get them into the game, that just gets them into the file that contains all the sprites. So like I said, once you get the cache going, that doesn't actually get the sprites into the game or the code. It just gets them to be able to be loaded. To actually get the sprites into the code, you have to come in here. So to the entity handler in the client. So basically for every single item in the game, you have to add a new item def. And so here are the item defs for the items that I added. And so here's the 5 rabbits' feet. Here's the bunny and egg ring. Here's their description. And so you can kind of figure this out just by looking at other items. Some of this stuff is kind of labeled for you by IntelliJ, since they thankfully label the parameters. But yeah, function calls like this are pretty, or I guess these are constructors, but constructors where they have like 60 parameters are pretty insane. This is where you actually reference the cache. So you see it was in items, and then I just referenced the name of the sprite in the cache. So yeah, a lot of these things, like I said, are pretty self-explanatory. So like these aren't members items, but they are untradeable. They aren't notable. This is their ID. You just increment that by 1 every time. It doesn't have to be. Thankfully, whoever created this was smart enough to actually have an ID parameter and not just use the index in the array, because you'll see it goes from 1479 to 1481. That's because 1480 is reserved for the dragon woodcutting axe. But this is just the items. So now we have to get the NPCs into the game. So for those, you come down here to the animation defs. And those are the ones I added are all the way at the bottom, because that's just the best place to add stuff. Here they are. So this is where you load the animations. So I have the bunny, the duck, the bunny morph, and the egg morph. They're all in the NPC category. These character colors, this is kind of just like the mask that will go over it. I don't really want to explain that right now, but it's basically how items like the two-handed sword, for example, it only has one animation file, but you load it in 4 or 5 times or whatever, just with a different color so that it looks like a different item. But yeah, I don't really want to get into explaining that. I'm sure you'd be able to figure it out just by looking if you wanted to do this. And yeah, I honestly don't know what the rest of these parameters are for. Like, I don't know what has A means. I don't know what has F means. I have no idea what this number's for. Yeah, and then these numbers off to the side are just the animation ID, or appearance ID. That's what we call it. Unfortunately, whoever designed this did not make it a separate member of the animation def class, and so it's just the index in the array, which is actually unfortunate because now it's offset from the server by 1. So while in the client, which one is this? This egg morphs animation def is index number 475. On the server, it's referenced by 476 because it starts at 1 on the server instead of 0 like it does on the client, which is kind of silly, but at this point, it's kind of too late to change it. You would have to change so much stuff, it would be ridiculous. So now that we have our items and animations in, we actually have to define the NPCs. So the animations are different from the NPCs themselves. The NPCs are further up here. Yeah, here we go. Here's Ester. So you can see that for every NPC, we have the sprite array. And this is something that's also really confusing. Basically, this is just a list of animations that you want attached to your NPC. So like this first animation, I think is her head. Let me look. So I actually put a list here because I always forget. So it goes head, shirt, pants, shield. weapon, hat, body, legs, gloves, boots, amulet, cape. I wish that was labeled somehow, but since it's just an array, you can't really label that. Let's go back to Ester. So yeah, this is her head, body. So this would be like her actual head with like her hair style. This is her shirt, I think, and that's her pants. And then this is her staff, I believe. This would be her shield. And then these are like her equipment, so like her hat, her robes. I might not be clicking on these in the right order. And then this last one is for her cape. But anyways, so that's how you get like clothing onto your NPC. This is the description of your NPC when you examine it. There's a command which isn't used on a ton of NPCs in RuneScape Classic, but we use it for like a quality of life bank feature. Like if you've ever played modern RuneScape and you right click the NPC and you can click bank instead of having to talk to the NPC to bank, that's what this would be used for. But like I said, pretty much no NPCs use this, and I think authentically no NPCs would use it at all. Only custom NPCs would. Then you have stats. Obviously Ester is a non-hostile NPC, so the stats don't really matter. As you can see by the attackable false parameter there. Here's where you actually load her sprites. Here's her hair color, which is just the hex value converted to decimal. So if you type this in a decimal, the hex converter, it would be kind of like yellowish. Here's her shirt color and her bottom color, but you can't see those because she's wearing like the gnome robes is the clothes she's wearing. There's her skin color. Camera 1 and camera 2. I don't know if these do anything for humanoid NPCs, but for non-humanoids, it actually determines the size of them. I could not figure out what these did forever. I believe this one is the width and this one's the height. And then you have a couple other parameters like walk model, combat model, and combat sprite. I'm not actually sure what those are for. I've never messed with them, but I usually just copy and paste from the above NPC, and it seems to work, so that's good. And then you just increment I for some reason. I think that's the NPC ID. So instead of typing it out manually, you just have a variable that does it, which I'm not sure I really like. I think it makes more sense to have to type it manually, because then you actually know what the ID is. Like, it doesn't make sense to have it just as a variable. Anyways, here's the bunny. So with non-humanoid NPCs, you just load their first sprite with the animation. So if you go back down to the bunny, oops, his animation was number 472. So that's what you put there, and then everything else is -1. And like I said, the rest of the stuff is the same. Same for the duck. Here's his animation. And yeah, that's how you add stuff into the client. That still won't get your NPCs to appear in game though, because you notice we haven't added anything like coordinates or anything like that. So there's actually 2 more places you have to change to get your NPC to show up in game. And for that, you need to come into the server conf server defs directory, and you want the NPC defs custom JSON. So we'll open that with Visual Studio's code here. And if I go to the bottom, here is let's take a look at my duck. So this is the NPC ID. You just basically take the one from before and add one. This is the name, description. Basically, we're just re-putting in everything that we put in the client. In the future, we'd like to have this stuff replicated automatically so that you, for example, only have to put stuff in on the server and it automatically gets sent to the client. But unfortunately, that isn't the case right now. So you're basically just re-entering the NPC. So you have to put in their sprites again. You have to put in their hair color. Obviously, this is a duck, so these numbers don't really matter. Yeah, you'll notice that I didn't change their size. This is one thing that doesn't really matter to change on the server. You probably should, out of best practice, but like I said, it doesn't matter. And yeah, pretty much everything you can just kind of copy paste and change what you need to. So that gets your NPC recognized by the server. So you're almost there. Last thing you need to do is actually get your NPC to spawn. So you want to come into one of these NPC custom locks files. I use the custom quest file since my NPCs are technically quest NPCs. And this one's kind of hard to read because basically what you do, so this is for the duck. Basically, you just put the NPC's ID, you put the X and Y coordinate for where they'll spawn, and then you basically put a box around where they can walk. So this NPC can only walk to a minimum of X is 86 and Y is 438. But it can walk to a maximum of 106 and Y is 458. So this, kind of creates a box around where they can actually walk. For my NPCs in this quest, unless they needed a special perimeter, like Ester can only walk in her house, most of them can just have I think I did a 20 tile radius. Yeah, once you add this in, now you'll finally be able to see your NPC in game because the server actually knows where to put them. And you might think, holy cow, this is crazy. Just be grateful that this is just JSON. It used to all be in the database, so you'd have to be either use some kind of visual database editor, and you'd have to add NPCs in through SQL, which wasn't fun. So this is definitely a huge improvement from what we used to have to do when adding and configuring NPCs. Alrighty, so now that we have our NPC spawning, when you click on them, they'll just say the NPC is not interested in talking. So if you click on the bunny, it'll say the bunny is not interested in talking. So we actually need to get them to talk. So to do that, you need to make a new plugin. So there are two folders in the server here. There's the source, which is the engine code, and the plugins, which is all the content, or at least it should be. The source probably has too much content in it for its own good, but we're working on getting all of the content out of the engine and exclusively in plugins. So anyways, custom content goes in the custom package, and then we need mini games, which is where also the mini quests go. And then we need to make a new package like I did for Ester's Bunnies. And then you can add your quest NPCs. A lot of the quests you'll notice are in one class. Like if I go to authentic quests, you'll see the entirety of Black Knight's Fortress is in one class. And I find that kind of annoying. So I broke my quest out into multiple classes, one for each of the NPCs. So here's Ester's class. Obviously hers is the biggest. And you need to implement some interfaces here. So for Ester, we have the talk NPC trigger and the minigame interface. Technically, you don't need the minigame interface. It doesn't really do anything for us, to be honest with you. And I could have completely done without it, but it's just kind of one of those things that I just did to do it. But yeah, I probably didn't need this, to be honest. But I definitely need the talk NPC trigger, because that's what lets you talk to the NPC. So you'll see here I have this onTalk NPC function, and this is called when we click on the NPC. And to get it to work, you actually have to come down here. So when you implement the interface, it'll actually add two functions. It'll add a block function, and then it will add the on trigger function. So the block function, you want to have a Boolean return. And so for this case, we say if NPC ID is equal to Ester's, then we're going to return true. And that means that the NPC we clicked on is Ester, so this is the script we want to run. Otherwise, if this returns false, that means the NPC we clicked on, which is the parameter here, isn't Ester, and so we don't want to run this script. It's kind of confusing if you don't know what you're looking at or haven't really done stuff like this before, but basically, you want this function to return true if it's the NPC you're interacting with. And then once that's the case, the onTrigger function will be called. And then basically from here on out, it's just the quest. One of the nice things is you'll notice I have a lot of these functions here. They look kind of simple. So like NPC say here, I just have to feed in the dialogue. It used to have to be, if I come over here to one of the older quests, like this is an event I did a little while ago, you'll see, for example, NPC say, I have to pass in the player and the NPC. So this is something we've been working on, is Rune script compatibility. And so we've actually been working on putting the NPC and the player in a context instead of actually having to pass them around as parameters. So instead of having to tell NPC, say, which player and which NPC to use, it's actually set up as context variables when you interact with an NPC. So you don't really even have to worry about which NPC or whatever. You can just call NPC, say, and give it the dialogue, and it'll just handle it all for you pretty much. That's pretty nice that we've been able to get that kind of stuff in. I didn't use Rune script for everything because I'm not completely done with it, but for the most part, I would say this is pretty close. Despite the fact it's written in Java, I would say this is pretty close to what you might see a Jagex quest looking like, except of course they wouldn't have functions, they would just have labels. But that's getting too in-depth for this video. I just wanted to show you how you might go about coding a quest. So basically, if you see here, we use the player cache to store a integer here under this key, and that just keeps the stage here. And so that's the same in the bunny and in the duck. We both read and set the stage to figure out what the NPC should do at different points in the quest. The bunnies, I actually had an interesting problem. So since the bunnies are all the same NPC, they're just spawned multiple times. It was hard to figure out how to get them to actually like give you. I wanted the player to have to go to all the bunnies, but I didn't want to have to make 5 different bunnies. And at the same time, I didn't want the player to be able to just like, drop dupe the foot, where if you drop it and talk to the NPC, it'll give you another one. So what I had to do is I had to have this get which bunny function, and I had to have this bunny enumeration. So this enumeration basically helps to keep track of which bunny you're talking to. So this get which bunny, it basically just checks if the NPC is in a certain box, and then it labels that bunny as that specific bunny. So like if this bunny was in this box, it would be the Moosa Point bunny. If it's in this box, it would be the Lumbridge bunny. And then up here, I have a hash map that maps the bunny to which foot it should give. So Moosa Point bunny gives rabbit foot 1, which is item ID 1483, and so on. Just something that I wanted to point out. It's not, obviously you probably won't need to know something like that if you're making your own quest. But yeah, anyways, so that's pretty much it. The rest of this, I mean, we've already been through the dialogue, so I don't really have to show you any of it. But yeah, here's kind of the gotcha I was talking about. So you have to be holding all 5 of the bunny feet before it'll actually set your quest stage to stage 3, which means that you can hand the bunny feet back to Ester. I just found the bug that I was showing you when I was talking to the bunnies, and it would still have like the come with me option if you were holding the foot. That's because of this and statement. So it comes in here, checks to see if your quest stage is greater than 1, which means that you've already grabbed a foot. And if you aren't holding the foot, then it will give the like I need your foot, like the quick option to give the foot. Otherwise, it will add the come with me longer option where you have to go through the extra set of dialogue. Because I made this an and statement, that means that if you are holding the foot, it will fall through to this, which is kind of dumb. I should have saw that coming. But like I said, this was probably one of the last changes I made, and I was running out of time because I originally had some extra lines and stuff. But yeah, anyways, guys, that is going to do it for this one. I hope I was able to make this last half at least kind of interesting to someone. If not, then I apologize. Hopefully you all clicked away before you got here. If this wasn't interesting, I assume you would. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to join the Open RuneScape Classic Discord, though. I feel if you're watching this far, or watching this at all, you're probably already in it. And yeah, we definitely need more people writing quests and stuff. So hopefully with these RuneScript changes, it'll be even easier than ever. We have all these functions. Let me pull them up real quick. We have all these functions. They're nice and have documentation, so you can just look through these. All of these can be used in quests. They're really simple to use. They're not entirely finished yet, so you might want to wait a while. But the other nice thing is there's also tons of examples. Like if you come in here to the authentic quests, there's just RuneScape Classic. RuneScape Classic has quite a few quests already implemented, so you can take a look at some of the other quests in the game. But yeah, I hope you guys did enjoy, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.